So I want to introduce myself. My name is Kerry Ahrend, and I am the author of a book right here. It's called Project Career Quest, Navigating the Journey to New Opportunities Waiting. And Marci.
I have mine here.
Okay, cool. And Marci is the author of, and she has hers there as well, and I have her book. It's called Permission to Land. Okay. And the idea for doing this, and we're calling it In Preparation for Landing, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but to do this, I am a career coach, and I write the book, again, a Project Career Quest, where I primarily work with professionals, and the book was primarily written for people who've probably been in the workforce for a while and have been laid off, or somehow lost their job, or they're just looking for something more meaningful. And it's also for college students as well. And I was thinking about it, and I just finished reading Marci's book, Permission to Land, and she's a high school English teacher. She's from Long Island, New York, and she teaches 11th and 12th graders. In fact, Marci just finished her first day of class, getting the kids back in school. That's another story in itself. But so I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if we just talked about what could we do to help students, and not just college students, people that are graduating from college, but even back it up further than that, to help kids when they're in high school, when they're in 11th and 12th grade, because they're starting to make decisions about their future then, because they're starting to choose colleges based on what they want to major in, or even if they don't know what they want to major in, they're still going through that process if they do want to go to college. And again, not all kids go to college. Some may go to trade school, or go to the family's business or whatever. But in making those tough decisions, a lot of times it's just left up to them, and even then their parents don't even know how to give them much assistance. So it's like it's kind of like, and the reason I chose the name, by the way, I just want to tell you the reason why I chose the name In Preparation for Landing. Part of it, I was looking at Marci's book one day, Permission to Land, which that's her autobiography about her story. And then what I was sharing with Marci was that when people in the workforce, or that are out there looking, and then when they finally interview and get an offer and they get that job, they get they get a job offer and they decide to accept it, we say that they have landed. Congratulations, you've landed, right? And so I thought, oh, well, let's kind of stick with that, landing type of thing, because, you're landing a job, permission to land. Well, let's talk about in preparation for landing. And that reminded me of being on an airplane. And I have, over the last 24 years, traveled quite a bit all over the US and Canada and internationally. And, anybody who's been on an airplane, that when it's time to land, you're up there in the air, and you're getting, 25, 30 minutes outside of landing, and the pilot comes on and he says, or the head flight attendant comes on and says, in preparation for landing, will you please put your seat backs, and tray tables up, and put your luggage away, and store everything under the seat or in the bins above. And, they give you all these instructions so that you'll have a safe, secure, and soft landing, if you will.
Right.
And, so the analogy seems to fit, because we'd like to have that soft landing. And we'd also, if those of you that may have looked at the Facebook post, one of them I put on there with, two planes going in opposite direction. I said, how many of you would ever go to an airport, and let's assume that airports didn't have up there saying this flight's going to LaGuardia, or JFK, or Atlanta Hartsfield International, or Chicago O'Hare, or whatever. Let's say there's nothing up there, and you go to an airport. How good would you feel about just going, I think I'll go to gate 8 today. Let's go there and see where it takes off and where I end up, right? Okay, right. Now some of you may be very adventurous, but I would venture to say that if you did that a couple times and you ended up in Podunk, wherever, I don't want to say a name of a state because I don't want to offend anybody, but you end up in some Podunk town somewhere, and there's nothing really exciting for you to do, you probably may not do that again. You spend a lot of money to get there, and now you're somewhere and you're like, what? This isn't where I want to be. And,
right.
So we don't get on airplanes without knowing where it's taking off for and where it's going to land. So we have some idea where we want to go. I thought about this, Marci, yesterday. We were talking and you said, well, some people might like doing that. I said, well, maybe once or twice, but I actually have a friend here in Raleigh, North Carolina, where I live. Her husband would do that for her every year. Once a year, he would tell her, okay, honey, I just want you to pack your bags and we're going to fly out, and here's the time of the flight and we're going to go somewhere. And he wouldn't tell her where they were going to go.
He knew though.
He knew, okay, he had the plans already made, but he did this for her every year. But he did tell her, because she would say, okay, but how do I pack? You still need to know how to pack. Is it going to be cold? Is it going to be warm? Should I bring a bathing suit? Should I bring, ski clothes? Should I, give me some idea of what I need. Right. So that when I get there, I'm prepared. And so, we don't do a good job, I believe, as a society, and never have. And certainly, it's been decades since I got out of school, high school, and even college. And I wasn't prepared. And what I'm going to share with you in a little bit, I'm going to ask Marci to share first a little bit about her career journey, and then I'll share mine, because I want you to understand that Marci and I have both been down this path, and we know what it's like not to be prepared, not to have been given any guidance, just kind of like, here, get on this plane and go wherever, and hey, good luck, right? And even if it's like leaving high school and going to college, okay, you're going to be on this flight for the next 4 years, 4 hours, whatever it might be, and wish you the best, right?
Exactly.
It would be nice to have a little bit of information about where we want to go, and to be able to provide that to high school students. And so that's why I asked Marci to join us, because as an 11th and 12th grade teacher, and I believe, and Marci will clear this up for me, I believe she says she's been doing this about 25 years, and she loves what she's doing, and that's great. But she didn't always do this. She had a couple other jobs before she figured out what she wanted to do when she grew up, right? We always say that, what do I want to do when I grow up? And it took her a few jobs to figure that out, but she loves what she does, and she also enjoys helping her students make some of these, guide them a little bit on this decision path, and help them think through the process a little bit. So Marci, will you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about, your career path, and then about what you're doing now as a school teacher in Long Island, New York.
Sure. I'm so glad that you came up with this idea to do this, because I think that this kind of a thing, and if we go forward and have a series and a following and so on, I think this is going to help a lot of people clarify a lot of things. I've been teaching public high school English. This was the beginning of my 26th year, but this wasn't what I wanted to do when I was a kid. I went through, as I was growing up, all the things that people go through. I want to be an actress. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a pediatrician. I want to be a dancer, whatever, all these things that you might think of. And then when I was graduating college and graduating high school and I was looking for colleges, I really had no direction. I didn't really have any idea what I wanted to do. I had this vague notion of walking the streets of Manhattan in a business suit with a briefcase, but I didn't know to what kind of a job or how to do any of that. And the only thing that I really, really liked in high school was music, drama, and English. And I'm not that good of a musician or that good of an actress. So I figured English is communication, it's writing, it's thinking, it's all sorts of things. It's applicable to a whole lot of stuff. So I was going to go to college as an English major, but still really no clear idea what I wanted to do with it. But I knew that I didn't want to be a teacher. So I was an English literature major, not an English education major. So I graduated and I thought, well, I'm going to work in publishing. So I got a job. Upon graduation from college in 1990, I got a job working for Random House Publishing in the city, and I loved it.
Carry a briefcase and wear a suit?
I wore a suit, but I didn't really have to carry a briefcase because it didn't have stuff I was bringing back and forth. But I was in the catalog department, and from there, when you're in a big corporation like that, you can get a myriad of jobs, like promotion and advancement and lateral, diagonal, whatever moves were all possible. I didn't really know what the ultimate goal was, but I knew I wanted to do something with books. And so about 6 weeks into that wonderful, auspicious career, Random House disbanded my entire department. I don't know what blind visionary didn't see this coming 6 weeks ago. Like, why bother hiring someone? And I was really upset about it because I didn't know what I was going to do next, and I had just figured out where the best deli was for lunch. So, so from there, you know, that's what we focus on, right? So, exactly. I just got the commute down. I just figured out where I'm going to get lunch, and now it's all over. So from there, I sort of backtracked, and I got a manager's position in retail at a men's clothing store and the same chain that I had worked as an assistant manager for when I was in college. So I was able to sort of parlay a promotion because now I had a degree and get a job doing that. And, you know, it was great to get dates because it was a men's clothing store, but I really hated the hours and the pay was abysmal and I didn't stay there very long. So I needed to make a move, but I didn't really sort of know what I wanted to do. When I was in college, I was the production manager of the college newspaper, and learned all sorts of things about project managing and about production managing and hiring a staff and doing computer graphic arts, because I was the person who did all of the graphics for the advertising on very rudimentary, you know, the first Macintosh computers of like 1988, you know. And so I used those skills to get myself a job as a computer graphic artist for an advertising agency. And I loved it. It was creative, it was fun. But after a while, I realized that I was with the same 15 people 8 hours a day. There was no advancement. I didn't see anyone else. And I was sitting at a computer for 8 hours a day. And after about 6 or 7 months, I was like, I can't do this for 30 years. There's no way. I can't even do this for 12 months. There's no way. So it took me a little while to figure out where I wanted to go next, but I decided that I was going to try my hand at being a photographer since I was a photography fine arts minor in college. So I got a job with a wedding photographer and managing a photo studio. This is a long, crazy, circuitous story, but and then I did that for a few months and got equally bored. You know, there's no advancement. You have to constantly be selling yourself to get a job. And I thought if I saw one more needy bride, one more bridezilla, I was going to scream and throw my camera bag at her. So that only lasted a few months before I got bored and was just like, well, okay, so this was fun for a few minutes, but now I need something else. So from there, I decided that I was going to go back to the city and I was going to get a job in public relations because I had been doing some research and some reading, and I read the book, What Color is Your Parachute? Trying to figure out, you know, what I wanted to do. And I knew I needed more people. I knew I wanted writing. I knew I wanted some creativity. So I found a small PR firm in the city, like Lexington Avenue and 42nd Street, somewhere like Midtown. And again, at first I loved it. They had me reading and they had me writing, and I was putting together press kits and writing press releases, and they had me managing the LAN, their local area network in their office. And I was doing all sorts of really cool things, but they behaved like they were curing cancer, you know, and they were doing public relations for wallpaper companies, you know, not to disparage wallpaper companies. I like wallpaper, but I knew that this wasn't giving me the meaning in my life that I wanted, that I had always felt like I wanted to use my own creativity and I wanted something that was sort of different every day and that could be with people, but that it had to make me feel like I was making the world better. Mm-hmm. And writing press releases for wallpaper companies just wasn't doing it for me. Yeah. So I parlayed that PR job into a PR job working for the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, because I figured, okay, so now I'm going to take these same skills, but now I'm doing it for the good of children, for the good of the community and the kids within a community, and raising money. I was doing fundraisers. It was nice working for a nonprofit for a while, you know, like I really felt there was a whole sense of altruism that sort of grew through me through that job. And then that job ended, and I don't really know why. I was 24, 25, maybe 24. And right before Thanksgiving that year, my boss fired me with no notice. Clean out your desk, you're leaving. And I was young and naive and stupid and didn't know that I could fight that. I didn't know that I could demand to know why and have evidence. And, you know, it was run by a board of directors that I had a good relationship with. But then the center director, who I was directly reporting to, just on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, bye-bye, see ya, don't come back. And so I was at my aunt's house for Thanksgiving with my whole family, and I just had no idea what I was going to do. I had done like a volume of things, and every twist and turn was only temporarily fun, and I was directionless. I didn't know what to do. And my
Can I stop you just for a second before you
Yeah.
finish telling that? I just want to say this, that, you know, for those of you that are watching this, all of those can be very, very interesting jobs for some people. You know, while
Sure.
they weren't for Marci, you know, she wasn't interested in the wedding photography, or she wasn't, you know, she had done enough of, oh, I got somebody else here. Let me get somebody else in here. Hey, Jan, welcome, welcome. And you know, she worked for the PR firm, and she worked for Random House Publishing, which is interesting when I heard you say that, when I read that in your book, that now you've written and published your own book, which is really cool.
Right.
But, you know, but along the way, she learned lots of different skills. But see, all of those jobs can be a fantastic job for somebody. Okay.
Absolutely.
But what I think the
Absolutely.
point that Marci's making here, and I want to make sure that everybody gets this, is that it wasn't the fantastic, fulfilling, meaningful job for
For
Marci.
me, right, absolutely.
And
Not
that's what we,
disparaging those careers at all, you know. Some
and
of
that's
my
part of what we want to try to do, is to help people so that they can be closer to that meaningful, fulfilling job in the beginning, to not have to go on that same journey. Not that the journey is necessarily a bad thing, but it would, I think most of us would like to shorten that journey. So anyways, thanks for letting me interrupt you, but go back here to Aunt's house at Thanksgiving. Tell us what happened from there.
Okay, so my aunt looked at me and she said, you know, we've all kind of been talking about you, and we think that all these great things that you've tried are wonderful, but I think that you should stop denying it and just realize that you're supposed to be a teacher. We've known this since you were 5. And my first reaction was, well, when were you going to clue me in? You know, why didn't you tell me? And I think she said something along the lines of that we had talked about it, and I had evidently had a conversation with my mother that I do not remember, where I shot her down and said there was no way on God's green earth that that was what I was going to do, and so they didn't mention it again.
Mm-hmm.
But she said, if you close your eyes and you try to imagine what your life is going to look like in 10 years, what do you see? And the first thing I saw was children. And I knew, I've known my whole entire life that I wanted to be a mommy. And she said that the best thing about, she said that being a mom, she wished that she had thought of being a teacher, because if you were a teacher, you're on the same schedule with your kids. You're off when they're off mostly, and you're going to school the same hours that they are. So it was a really good job to have if you wanted to be a teacher. I mean, if you wanted to be a mom. But she said that my personality is very much in line with the attributes and qualities and values and so on that we would expect or want in a good teacher. So I didn't shoot her down, and I sort of thought about it, and I'm like, all right, as soon as Thanksgiving break is over for the college kids, I'm going to make an appointment with an admissions counselor and talk about it. So I went in with a copy of my transcript from my undergrad, and within 3 hours, I was applied, accepted, matriculated, registered to start graduate school in January to get my certification to teach secondary English, grade 7 to 12, and to get my master's degree in English literature.
Sure.
So it was a dual majored master's, and I just jumped in. And I really didn't know, I had an inkling, and I trusted my aunt. So I just went with it, and I loved the program. I loved it. It woke me up in a way that nothing else had ever woken me up. And then I got a job right away, And when I started working, I thought, well, all right, let's see how long this one lasts. You know, I didn't have such a great track record of sticking with things.
And I
And I
remember
didn't,
reading in your book, you weren't sure that it was going to last very long either.
right, you know, a couple of years, 10 years at the utmost, you know, like, and then I'll do something else. But I don't know what that something else was, but I've always had this need to just keep doing things and trying stuff. And I'm not afraid to fail, and I'm not afraid to make a fool of myself. It is what it is. I learn something more from the failures than I do from the successes anyway. So I started teaching, and I've kind of never looked back. Once I got in front of a classroom and I was like, I'm home. This is
Yeah.
it.
And I
You
mean,
know,
that's amazing too. 25 years of doing this, 26 year you said you're moving into, and that you still love it. And you know, sorry, Marci, Jan was on there in a minute ago. Marci
yeah,
could have started her teaching career and found out that wasn't for her either. But it's interesting to see how sometimes other people can see things in us that we don't see. Now, her
right.
aunt could have been wrong, but in this case, she wasn't. And she said, "Oh, we've all known ever since you were 5 years old that you would make a great teacher." And so they saw something in her. And so there's a lot of value in, not because I see too many kids that become, an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor or this or that because their parents were that, and their parents said, you need to be an engineer too because you won't make any money being a teacher. So, you
Yeah.
need to be
And
an
sometimes
engineer.
there are cultural biases towards certain careers, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, it's not like being pushed into something that is not right for you, but sometimes somebody else can see things, and we might want to, as Marci did, she went ahead and looked into it, and, hey, even if she
And it
stuck it
worked
out
out.
for 10 years, it was longer than the other, jobs that she had
Absolutely.
taken. But even listening to her description and having read it also in her book of the things that she did before, they were still great skills to help her to be a great teacher, and also now an author, working with Random House and public relations firms and some of the other things, editing, proof writing, what do you call it, copy, things like that. So
Sure.
anyway, well, I'm going to briefly tell you about my career, how I got to where I am. And, and then you can see that Marci and I have both been down this road. And so we know what it's like, sort of the frustrations of trying to figure it out. But, we did eventually, but I would have liked to have figured it out, a few years before. So
Sure.
I went to college, and I didn't pick my college based on anything other than the fact that it had to be far enough away from my home. I was from Charlottesville, Virginia. I loved UVA, but it was too close to home. And my dad wanted me to go to Cornell in Ithaca. I said, it's too cold in Ithaca. I don't want to go somewhere where it's so cold. And long story, but I ended up in North Carolina, right here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I have not lived here the whole time, but, and it was just like, yeah, it looks like a good school, liberal arts major, that kind of stuff. Went in as liberal arts major. It was my junior year, the beginning of my junior year, where they finally called me in. One of the counselors called me in and said, you need to declare a major. You haven't declared a major
Oh,
yet. And I was like, I have to decide now already? Like, it was only the beginning of my junior year, but it was like, but they made me declare a major. And I call it, and I wrote about this in my book. I said, I use what I call the dartboard method. I mean, just throw the dart and, okay, whatever. And I was actually taking a couple political science classes at the time because I tried to think, which courses do I like? There are a lot of things I didn't like that I had taken, but I thought, I had a couple of professors that I really liked in that. I said, okay, well, since I got to pick a major, I'll just pick that. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm so excited about my decision. It was like, I had to make a decision, right? So I finish up and I graduate with a political science degree. And then when I got right towards the end of my senior year, I'm like, oh crap, what am I going to do when I graduate?
right.
And I'm actually going to graduate on time. Many of my friends were on the 4 and 5 year track because they had changed majors so many times. And I was kind of like, darn, I wish I'd changed majors a couple of times so I could still at least hang out with them a little bit longer. But it wasn't like, it was like, I'm going to graduate from college and I have nothing to do. I don't even know where to begin. Right. So, I did go to one of the counselors there at NC State University where I graduated from college. And he was the one that suggested I might try paralegal school. And I had a friend who had graduated the year before, and she was at paralegal school in Atlanta at the time. So I ended up enrolling in the same paralegal school. I graduated in May, and the paralegal program didn't actually start till the following February. So that summer I went up to Pennsylvania, lived with my cousin, just, waited tables at a restaurant and kind of hung around, had some fun. And then I went home in the winter months. I didn't want to be up there in Pennsylvania and all that snow. So I went home, spent a couple months working at the Hallmark store, doing whatever, and started the program in February. It was a 3-month, very intensive program. Finished that program, went back to Virginia, started looking for jobs, mostly in Virginia, Washington, D.C. area. But one day I got a letter in the mail from the phone company down in Atlanta, and I thought, oh gosh, did I forget to pay my phone bill or something? But I'm going to tell you, back then, the building that we lived in, we didn't even have room. We didn't even have phones in our rooms. I mean, it's hard for anybody young today to imagine that, but all we had were hall phones, right? So I'm like,
Right.
I could have not paid the bill because I didn't even have a phone in the room, right? So I opened it up, and they had gotten my name and my resume from the paralegal school and wanted to know if I would come down to Atlanta and interview for a job. So I actually didn't even apply with them, but I thought, well, and I honestly felt at the time, I thought, oh no, I probably won't get it. I mean, I really wasn't even that confident about it. And my mother said, yes, you should go. And I was like, I was a little bit afraid because I thought, what if I don't get it? And she pays for me to fly down there. And she said, just go. Okay. So I flew
Go
down,
and try.
interviewed, came back that day. And interesting enough, and I wrote about this in my book also in Project Career Quest, on the way back from Atlanta, a man was sitting next to me, started chatting with me, asked me why I was there for the day, or what, did I live in Atlanta? What was I doing? I said, no, I was actually interviewing for a job. What kind of a job? A paralegal job. Oh, so we chat for a little bit. Then he pulls out his business card and hands it to me. Well, he's an attorney with the 10th largest law firm in Washington, D.C., which is actually the largest law firm in D.C. at this time, as of today. And they were hiring paralegals at the time. So he said, would you call the office on Monday and set up an appointment? We'd love to interview you. So I did. And I actually ended up getting 2 job offers at the same time. I chose to go with the phone company, telecommunication company, as opposed to a law firm, because I felt like, if I go for a law firm, the only advancement I have is to become a lawyer. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to do that or not. And at least being a paralegal would give me an idea whether that might be a career field for me. But if I worked in the phone company, big company, other opportunities, hopefully in the future. So that's what I did. And then when I was there, I was there in corporate America for 17 years, and I won't go through all the jobs, but I counted them the other day. And I essentially had 8 different jobs while I was there for those 17 years. Okay.
Wow.
8 different jobs. Now, some of them I was in the same department, and I just kind of morphed from, I started out writing business plans. The next thing I know, my boss sends me to Jacksonville, Florida to help design warehouse space. I was doing warehouse engineering. I was like, wow, really? Like, pull out the magic wand and throw some fairy dust on me. I have no background in that. But the guys I worked with were industrial engineers, and I absolutely loved it. I didn't love working in a warehouse. It was hot and all, but for the first time in my career, I wasn't sitting behind a desk all day. Right. And I knew that I loved that. And it was different. Back in the day when I worked, women always wore, pantyhose and dresses or skirts or pants or whatever, but you dressed up and all that kind of stuff. Well, working in the warehouse, I was wearing blue jeans, and sometimes we had to work weekends because it was a union environment, so we couldn't do some of the stuff we needed to do, bring construction people in to move things around and put things up. We had to do that on the weekends when there was nobody there. So my work schedule was flexible, and this was this was 20 plus years ago, right? And right. A long time ago. And so it was like, wow, I kind of like this, there's wearing jeans and flexible work hours and not sitting behind a desk. And once I finished that, I ended up on a re-engineering project for 3.5 years in the same department, worked myself out of that job, ended up in supply chain management. I wrote contracts and leases back behind a desk, not so much that I liked. But the last 3 years, actually, my corporate job, still in supply chain management, they created a new position as we had outsourced the re-engineering project I was on. We outsourced all of the training department. And so we just hired people and brought them in, whether it was Covey or Blanchard or whatever training company it happened to be, project management training, that kind of stuff. But my department, we had over 600 people in a 9-state region. My vice president wanted someone in the department that focused specifically on training for that department, because we didn't really have anybody anymore to help us. And so they created that position and asked me to take that position, right?
That's very cool.
And that's when I realized, because I had already been through like tons of training classes through the company. I mean, I should have a PhD in something for all the training I took, because I've always loved learning. I'm a continuous learner, right? And I love doing that stuff. And there were times when I thought about, gee, maybe I'd like to be a trainer. And then I sit there and think, I don't know, could I stand in front of a group every day? And what happens when I don't feel good and when I have a cold? And I would think of all the reasons why I shouldn't be a trainer.
Self-limiting beliefs.
But it was like, I think I could do that. And so the next 3 years, what I did is, and I did two things I trained on. One was ethics and one was purchasing, helping people get certified as purchasing managers. It wasn't really exciting training, but it was something. But mostly I was bringing in people. I was, contracting with suppliers and vendors to do training for us. And then I was helping my staff and also in professional development and what the managers needed to do to really those performance reviews with the people on how do you develop high performing teams and what do you need to do each year to help develop our staff, that kind of stuff. And I just knew that I loved that kind of stuff. And that's when, during those 3 years when I was in that position, that I decided I wanted to do it full time. They did continue to outsource, and I knew that they were offering a nice buyout package that I could take within the next 3 years. So I said, you know what, now is the time for me to go back to school, get my master's degree, and be ready to leave. I put a plan in place. That was the first time when I finally figured out what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
It's a nice feeling.
And so I did, and I actually finished my last day of graduate school on December 19th. And my last day of work at Bell South Telecommunication was December 20th, the day after.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
You timed that well.
I left and I had a nice buyout package and it took a couple months to just kind of decompose, I guess, or whatever. But I started trying to think about what I wanted to do, who I wanted to train for, and so forth. And ultimately, I went back to my project management training and ended up contracting with a company that I'm still with actually today. Actually, they're owned by Korn Ferry now, which is a huge company. They just got bought out by them last October, but they're the company that I've done my project management work and training for the last 24 years. So I so enjoy that. I love teaching project management class. I love teaching, leadership development and building high performing teams and how to negotiate and resolve conflict and all that. I mean, there's so many things. And I'm like you, Marci. I know we talked about Myers-Briggs and we're very similar in our personality type, that we both, with the personality type that we have, variety is important. And what I found over the years is I still can have huge variety in what I do as a trainer, as a coach, as a consultant, as a speaker. I can have variety in there, but I still love what I do as, in those titles. And so, again, it took me a long time to get there. And wouldn't it be great? And I see younger people who are doing what I'm doing now, who are much younger. And I thought, gosh, I wish I could have been more focused and directed. But, you don't know what you don't know. And when you got to figure it out.
Right, you probably didn't even know that was a career possibility. That somebody did that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, we only have about 15 more minutes here. And I think we've gone a little bit longer than I thought, but I wanted us to share our journey here. And what I wanted to put out there for everybody is that Marci and I are going to try to do this twice a month, probably on Thursdays around 4 o'clock. Marci gets out of school and has to come home and she's got her trip home and so forth. But if we do it on Wednesdays around 4 o'clock, we'll figure out how to put it on Facebook Live next time. And you won't hear us in the beginning doing that little talk about trying to figure out what we're doing and so forth. But here are the four things I want to start with that we're going to talk about. Well, one of them is, what can we do to better prepare students? And I'm talking high school students, college students, so that they have more direction. I mean, a friend of mine's son graduated a couple years ago from a local university here in North Carolina, and top of his class, great GPA. He was in a fraternity that he was the president of a fraternity that was about to go bankrupt when he took over. They were going to close them down, but he turned it around within 6 months so that they were able to stay. And because he did such an amazing job with that, they made him the president of the interfraternity, whatever it's called. He studied in Spain. He published a paper in Spanish. He was on the debate team and twice won for the university as the best debater, I think his sophomore and senior year. He had all kinds of great things on his resume, and I helped him put together his resume, but he was really struggling when he got out of college. Well, actually, the reason I helped him with his resume, because his mom reached out to me and she said, that her son, who thought, when I met with him, he said, Kerry, I thought when I got out of college, based on all the stuff he'd done in college and his grades and everything else, he said, I figured there'd be people knocking on my door looking for me. Sure. And I think a lot of college students, those with those with not so great scores may not think that, grades or whatever, but he definitely thought he was going to be highly sought after, and he wasn't. And so he was struggling, and he was a little depressed, and he was discouraged and everything. And so his mom reached out to me to help him. And I talked to him and tried to figure out what was going on, and he wasn't even interviewing well. And I was like, Nathan, what's going on here? Why are you not interviewing well? I mean, look at your debate background, but ultimately what came out of this was he said, I really don't want to stay in Raleigh. I grew up here. I've lived here my whole life. And I think he was afraid of getting a job and getting stuck in Raleigh, North Carolina, which, maybe he'll end up here someday. But, kids like to get away. They want to do something different and so forth. So we put together a plan for him that way. But, people graduating from college, even with great grades and all, they don't always know what they're going to do, or they may be, again, like Nathan, kind of discouraged and thinking they're going to come looking for me, and they don't. You gotta be prepared for that landing, right? You got to be prepared and have an idea what to do. And if you have some coaching, if you have some guidance from people who've been down that path, people like myself and you working with your high school students to help guide their decision-making process certainly not to influence it, to tell them what to do, but to give them, something. So what can we do to better help students, high school and college students, to better prepare? What's the responsibility of the schools to help? What are the responsibility of parents to help? And, quite frankly, a lot of parents are struggling themselves. I mean, some of these kids' parents might be out of work right now and they're trying to figure out what they want to do next. So how can they help their own kid figure it out if they can't figure it out themselves? So parents aren't always in a position to be able to help do that. And I just want to do
outdated.
I want to do a quick plug on my book here, just because I want to say that if you are a parent and you might look at this book and you may have a job right now and you may be happy in your job, but you may say, I don't need a job, so why would I buy this book called Project Career Quest? But let me tell you something. This book has 57 tools on my website, and many of those tools are also in the book here that will help people and guide them in making decisions. In fact, Marci and I are going to focus on some of the chapters in the book. Chapter 6 is getting to know yourself. And, if a kid, a child, a youth, a young person, is trying to decide what they want to do in their future, is they really need to know themselves. What do you like? Absolutely. What do you dislike? What interests do you have? What, do you like working with kids? Do you like, working with animals, things like that. So I've got lots of great exercises in here that a parent could actually take a book like this and, go through this. And I'd say the first 3 chapters are on sort of the emotional side of looking for a job, which may not apply, but there's plenty of stuff in that book that does apply. And interesting, when I first met Marci on our Facebook group with our authors. We're both authors with Author Academy Elite. And through that Facebook group, we started chatting, and Marci bought my book. And I thought, well, that was kind of interesting. She's a school teacher, is she looking for a job, or why is she going to use this? And one of the things she said to me was, she has 2 kids in college right now. I mean, her 2 children are in college, one in Massachusetts and one in New York. Is that right?
Vermont. Yeah. Vermont. Okay. Yeah.
And but she said also for my students, and I'm not sure I knew that you were a school teacher at the time, but this is a great book to help whether you're a teacher or a parent, to help guide your own children or even children that you're mentoring, teaching, leading, whatever. Maybe you're a scout leader or something. There's tons of applications for this book to help. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about what are the consequences of not helping, of not giving some guidance. For people like Marci and myself, we kind of struggle and try to figure it out along the way. And I think Marci and I both made some good choices that we were learning some things along the way. But I see a lot of kids that just get out and they end up doing something and they're working at, something that they know they don't want. They know it's a dead end. They're not even enjoying it. They're not even picking up any great skills, and it's very discouraging for them. So that's
Absolutely.
one of the consequences. And the other one is there's huge financial consequence. And I put that in one of the Facebook posts about, what if your kid goes to school, not just for 4 years, but they change majors a couple times. And now they're there 5 years, 6 years, I looked this up a couple years ago, and it may be a lot more now, but it used to be like for a lot of state universities around 35, 40,000 a year. And then if you take the private universities like Duke University, it's 65,000 plus. And again, I need to check those numbers again, but let's say anywhere, that extra year could cost you anywhere between $40,000 to $70,000, and then double that, make it a 6-year plan. That's a lot of money. And then they can still graduate and walk out of there and
still not know what they want to do.
And you were saying it earlier when you and I chatted, how many people, and if you're watching this, I want you to think about this. How many of you graduated with a degree in business or English or economics or finance or whatever it happens to be, political science like me, and you did nothing related to your major? Nothing, okay? And my cousin's son just graduated from law school. And when he finished law school, he announced to his parents that he didn't want to be a lawyer. He didn't take the bar exam, but I mean, this is 4 years of college, 2 years of law school. And almost immediately after finishing law school, he says, I don't want to be a lawyer. Okay.
Well, didn't he figure that out while he was in law school? Like, why finish if...
Who knows? Maybe he did and figured I better go ahead and finish up anyway. But, obviously his parents weren't too happy about that as they're paying for law school. So anyway, and then the one last thing, and for now, and I know we got a lot of other things to talk about, is the fifth one is, what if we as working adults had more guidance, more leadership, more career direction, help with our career direction when we were younger?
Right.
How would that have affected our life? And we can't go back now and change that, but we can change it for someone else. And we can help someone else if we learn some of those skills and so forth. And that's what Marci and I are going to be talking about over the next couple of weeks, months. Who knows how long we'll do this, but what are some of the tools and techniques and strategies and best practices, and we'll talk about the challenges. And I know Marci was sharing one of the tools that the schools use. What's the name of that tool that you were sharing about helping kids?
It's called Naviance, Naviance, and it's a website that you have to buy a membership to. You can do it as a parent or a student, or schools often do. And I know quite a few school districts in my neck of the woods up here in New York buy into this system. And I think it's nationwide. And what it does is it allows you to do, it coordinates all of your student data, your GPA, your test scores, your recommendations, and so on for the guidance department to help you apply to colleges. But it also helps you narrow down where you want to go. So you can refine a lot of the searching and look for schools based on demographics, based on geographical location, based on size, based on major or minor options, based on Greek life, Division 1 or 2 or 3, sports teams, athletics, dorm life and cost and GPA range and SAT score range. Like, you can toggle on all of these different, must be 50 different criteria, things that you almost wouldn't even think of. And it narrows down the pool of colleges and universities, and I believe trade schools across the country. and we'll give you a list. And then that resulting list is a list of live links that will get you to that school's website. And then it also does in a square sort of statistical grid, I don't know what it's called, it'll show you the GPA versus SAT or ACT score range and the potential possibility that, or probability that you would get accepted, that you would become accepted to that school. Like, so you can see where you fit in on that grid. It'll tell you like, this is a safe school for you, or this is a moderately, you know, you're moderately sure chance that you're going to get in, but you're still not so sure, or, you know, this is a reach kind of thing. So it helps you narrow down.
Yeah, do me a favor, tell them again the name of that. They can look at it, and we'll bring that up as another topic, and we'll talk about that. And I think one of the things I'd asked Marci when she was sharing that with me, I'd never heard of it before, and she thinks it's been around for about 5 years now. So obviously for those of us older, there was nothing like that, but I think it's a great tool. But one of the questions I asked you yesterday was, did it also help you determine like kind of giving them an idea of what they might major in, which I don't think that's included in there. So, you know, that is information that would be good to have before you start populating all of that. But tell them again the name of it, and then we need to go ahead and wrap it up for today and let them know when they can join us again.
So the website is called Naviance, N as in Nancy, AVIANCE.
Naviance, okay.
Naviance.com
okay.
or .org.
So
either way, I'm not sure.
You know, Google it, check it out. If you're a parent, you might want to see if your kids have access to that. If your schools do, that sounds quite interesting. So
contact their guidance counselors. They should know. It's a pretty popular tool.
Okay, Marci, thanks so much for being here today, co-hosting this with me. We plan to be back in 2 weeks from now, and that will be, let me look at my calendar here. Today is the 10th. That would be the 24th of September. Try to be here at 4 o'clock. Try to do it Facebook Live too. Figure this out between now and then. Certainly we can do that. But what we really like ultimately is we would love, and of course today was difficult with the setup, but we'd love to have people join us, parents, teachers, students,
guidance counselors,
you know, come on and tell us what your challenges are, you know, and what your goals are, or, you know, what questions you might have for us so that we can address some of those things and really make this relevant for that audience. Because I believe that, you know, we can really change how people make these decisions and really help people if we have this kind of discussion. So, but we really want other people to join in, because Marci and I are only 2 people. So we need to hear from you, and we look forward to your involvement as well. So thanks so much, and take care. And I've got my buddy in the background. If you saw me on Job Hunt July, I always have
Mark Twain.
Mark Twain, not Colonel Sanders, but this is Mark Twain. And Mark Twain said that the 2 most important days of your life are the day that you're born and the day you discover why. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.